Holistic Hilda, let's jump right into it. Tell us, what is the number one struggle that you see your audience, your fan base have that you solve?
The number one struggle, I think, is a lack of understanding of their purpose in life. And this sounds so kind of Tony Robbins-esque. You know, it sounds like I'm going to be a motivational speaker. We're going to get
real excited. We're going to be dancing here real soon.
But it's funny, Justin, let me tell you, because I know all about food. I know all about fitness. I know about all these things. And yet it boils down to, who are we? I feel like people are really lost and directionless in general. Like they feel like, what's the point? They want to throw up their hands, either personally because they don't have a sense of purpose or a strong sense of identity, or culturally because the world seems to have gone mad right now. So that's what I see. And so what I try to do as Holistic Hilda is remind them that there is more to wellness than meets the eye. It's not just one thing or the other. It's not going to be either a program that somebody's selling you on or a nice smoothie that you need to start buying. It really has much more to do with spirit and mindset, even than just the physical.
Cool. You were just recently at Homesteaders of America. What was your talk?
Oh, actually, I just met people. I mingled around.
You didn't have a talk?
I was like a little butterfly.
Well, what did you talk about when you met people walking around?
Well, it was actually about my vision. What I'd like to talk about next year is how to be healthy, whether you're on a homestead or in a city. Because, you know, I'm a city girl with a country heart. But I feel like even if you're busy tending the chickens and the cows and your children, you might not take time to take care of yourself. And that's part of what's needed.
Are you growing anything in the city?
Some tomatoes, but I feel like the rats got them all.
Okay.
And I'm not even kidding. We have rats like this big.
Well, everybody's hunting them something to eat. Even the rats.
It's true. It's true.
Well, and I mean, a tomato.
It's pretty basic, right?
Well, and it sounds much more delicious than the trash that the rat has access to.
That's true.
A tomato can be quite difficult. While you were at HOA, did you meet any of your fans, followers, listeners to your podcast, Wellness? Wait, it's not.
It's
Wellness.
Wise Traditions.
Wise Traditions.
Well, actually, I did. And it was funny because I didn't have a talk. I didn't have a fixed spot where I was. People would just see me walking by and be like, "Are you Hilda? Are you Holistic Hilda?" You know? So that was really sweet. Sometimes they just wanted to know where the bathroom was. But
you looked official.
I still felt very honored, you know. I did meet this lady, Heidi, who was like, "I didn't want to bother you," as if I were doing something very important. I really was just flitting around.
Yeah. If you want to know where the bathroom was, is right in front of that really long line.
I know, right? Just find
okay,
a really
so what did they
in.
vibe with when somebody identifies you as Holistic Hilda from the podcast? What did they speak to you about in their way of thanking you?
I think they're thankful for the content because I do interview guests who know a lot and they have a lot of expertise, but I think they also are grateful for the way in which I draw it out of them, because some of this stuff can be really pretty heavy and pretty heady. And what I try to do is make it more accessible. I used to be a translator, literally getting words in Spanish and French and putting them into English so that people could understand what was being conveyed. And so I feel like in some ways that's what I try to do with a podcast. If some guest is saying something that's like way up there, I'll be like, "Can you break that down for us?" Or, you know, I'll ask them a question to bring it to earth, because if it's not applicable, then what good is it? It's just knowledge that puffs up. It doesn't build up.
Are they able to bring it back down to earth for you?
Some of them.
What do you do when they can't?
Well, I was going to say, some of them fight me along the way. And the listeners
Not purposely.
know.
Or are they doing it purposely?
Well,
no, I think they're just really smart. I think
they are really smart, and they have a track they want to go. So I'm like, what about this? So like, let me stay on this track. And I'm like, okay. So sometimes I have to let them steamroll, as it were. Other times I will try to tell them early on, let's make sure this isn't a lecture and it's a dialogue, because really that's what helps keep people's attention, and it's also more likely to be applicable, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes actually they just don't air. So I've interviewed a lot of people and it didn't make the light of day. Not because of me, but I have a listening team who helps us judge, is this worth putting out or not? And so I go by what they say, and sometimes even big names don't get out there.
So how do you break how do you break the news to them? Yeah, we just spent an hour and
it's
not airing.
The very top guests never ask me. They don't care. They just did it out of goodness of their heart, and they don't really follow up. Other people might say, hey, when's that coming out? And often what I'll do is ahead of time, I will tell the guest, this may or may not be aired. Sometimes we'll use the content for our journal, and sometimes it's not a good fit. Okay. But most people don't follow up.
Okay. You said on your website that you're addressing fads. There's a lot of fads out there. Can you, in regards to health, we'll go back to health here. What are some of these health fads that you've seen come and go that maybe you might think the homesteader or the health community might be subject to?
Well, a lot of them revolve around diet. And I don't really like diets because the first three letters are D-I-E, die. And that doesn't sound good to me. I know. It's like deprivation. These foods are good and these are bad. And how could you ever let that past your lips because it has some grains of sugar in it? I understand people who are recovering their health and need to be extremely careful to avoid glyphosates or GMOs or sugars. Fine. But if you're not in that category, I think it kind of can make you orthorexic. I don't know if you know that term. Yeah. But it's when a person gets so obsessed with their diet that they're missing the whole of life. And what I like about the Wise Traditions approach, everything is on the table, even sweets. There's no deprivation. You choose, depending on what works for your body, how much of certain foods or fats or proteins you're going to have, but you're not forced to eliminate something forever because it's all good. If you think about it, it's all good. And it's all nourishing, especially when taken with joy and gratitude. And let me just segue to tell you a story. So like if you go to your grandmother's house and she offers you a cookie, and this has been me in the past, I might have said, no, never, I'm not going to have that because it's got sugar or maybe flour, right? Something that I might think is not good for me. But I'm kind of rejecting something that she's trying to offer me with love. And if it isn't going to compromise my health because I'm not, struggling in any way, then I'm going to go ahead and have that cookie. I've shocked my children as I've shifted in my thinking on this, realizing, it's okay. And it's actually becoming a part of a community, which really matters sometimes, to accept food that you might not know its perfect sourcing. So this is what they talk to me about. I'm concerned with the strict ways in which people are saying, I'm a carnivore only and this is bad and that's good. I wouldn't be so quick to label because I have traveled the world and diets vary all over the world. Some people eat no dairy. Some people eat lots of gluten and have a lot of bread, and that's what works for them. So I think N=1. You should see what serves your body best and not be afraid to try different things. And then you can say, this doesn't work for me, but that doesn't mean it's not going to work for other people.
How do you know it serves your body best?
Well, you really have to listen. And I have to admit, I've been one to ignore it. So, in other words, if you have bloating or troubles with your digestion, you might just say, well, yeah, I had some dairy. I know I react like that, but no big deal. Your body's trying to tell you something. And if you don't listen to it when it's whispering, it's going to shout later. So the idea is pay attention early on by your energy levels, by your digestive response. And those are beginning clues. Sometimes you might start to break out, and that might be a symptom that's telling you that something is not suiting your body well or something needs to change in your environment.
What if you, Holistic Hilda, are involved in a church group and it's KFC?
Well, what I try to do is actually lead by example. And in that case, I would try to bring something that I like to share with other people. Or if I'm going with a group and they want to go eat out, I'll be like, you guys, let's go to this farm to table place. I try to be the leader and the influencer. KFC, honestly, I wouldn't eat.
You do draw the line somewhere.
I mean, KFC compared to like a homemade cookie, they're two totally different.
That's true.
Things. I mean, like, and it is a different animal.
It is. And I have had fried chicken when I didn't know what kind of oil it was fried in. When I was in Ecuador, for example, they had fried guinea pig and fried chicken. And people often, even in these remote villages, will buy the cheaper processed seed oils because they're available and it says that they're good for you. They don't, realize always that things are shifting and not as beneficial as touted. So what did I do? I received it with gratitude because I was invited to be a part of a community meal. I wasn't going to say, oh no, what oil did you cook it in? I wasn't going to ask that. Yeah. But I didn't have the soda that they were serving. I had water.
How did the guinea pig taste?
Like chicken.
Everybody says that about everything.
I know,
Dark
right?
meat, white meat, chicken.
Yeah, was it dark meat or was it white meat? Like I've never been offered guinea pig.
It looked darkish to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rebecca, would you eat guinea pig if you were offered it?
It depends. It depends on how I was feeling.
She don't care what oil it is. That's a rodent.
Well, remember when we were on the Great American Farm Tour and they said that they ate their guinea pigs and we were like, you do? And they're like, just kidding. But they didn't. They
used them in other grass, but why not?
In Peru and Ecuador, guinea pig is quite common. It's a very affordable meat. It's like rabbit, I guess, here.
Yep.
You know, very affordable. You can have a bunch of them.
So the nourishing tradition, we won't call it a diet, but it does draw the line somewhere. I mean, it's not touting McDonald's.
No, you're right. There are 11 principles that are intended to be like guidelines to help people make their choices within what has served the test of time, you know, for people all over the world. So eating nose to tail, eating ferments, eating foods that are building blocks for the body, especially when you're in the childbearing years for both the man and the woman, and so on.
Those are those all the tenets right there? Do you know them
No,
all
there's
by heart?
11.
Do you know them
I
all by
think I
heart?
do know them by heart.
All right, go for it.
Okay. Number 1, no processed or denatured foods.
Okay.
Number
there
2
went McDonald's.
Yeah, exactly, right? And when they say no process, they mean not industrialized process, because obviously we process foods when we ferment and so forth.
Yeah.
Number 3 is nutrient density. I don't remember number 2 off the top of my head. And they made use of all the bones. So they made bone broth. They ate nose to tail. They had a greater amount of fat in their diets than we do generally. I mean, compared to the standard American diet.
Yeah.
And let's see what else. They had the right balance of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids in the diet. And that comes from eating pastured animals instead of the ones that are grain-fed and the CAFOs. Again, preparing for pregnancy, ferments, plenty of salt actually is important too. They all have plenty of salt in their diet. I might be missing 1 or 2, but that's the gist.
Okay. Let's cheat here, Hilda. Let's pull it up. What are the 11 tenets? Let's see how well you did.
Here they are. I did pretty well. I give myself a 8 out of 11. Number 1 is the no refined or denatured foods. Such as refined sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and white flour, and so forth. Number 2 is they all consume some sort of animal food. And actually, Dr. Price said this was his greatest disappointment of all the people groups he visited around the world. And he went to tons of countries. He didn't find one single plant-based community. They all had animal foods, whether it was eggs or seafood. There was always something that was going to give that nutrient density. And that's principle number 3, that their foods were 4 times greater in the minerals and vitamins, and fats, water-soluble vitamins, and 10 times greater in terms of the fat-soluble vitamins. So they had a lot of bang for their buck. Number 4 is they cooked some of their food, but they also ate some raw. And so that was one that I forgot about. They had a high content of food enzymes and beneficial bacteria, so that means ferments. That's number 5. 6 is one that you guessed at earlier.
Properly
Rebecca,
prepared.
Yes, properly prepared grains, seeds, nuts, and legumes.
And properly prepared means soaked or fermented.
Yeah.
Or sprouted. Yep. And that helps get
With the digestibleness of it all.
Eliminate the anti-nutrients, exactly. And again, they had a greater fat content in their diet. And they had nearly equal amounts of omega-6 and omega-3, which I said. They contained salt. They made use of the animal bones. And they made provisions for future generations. So those in the childbearing years ate
You did great. And for those that don't know, this is the Weston A. Price Foundation. This is things he discovered from indigenous peoples that are still around.
Yes.
Or was he studying past groups?
No, he did. He traveled the world to meet them face to face. And he found both people that were still eating their traditional diets and those that had departed from them. So this is what's interesting is he had like a control group. He could see, here's a group of people who are still eating these foods. Look at how amazing. He always looked at their teeth because he was a dentist. But he's like, look at their broad smiles, and they have no cavities or very few cavities, and they have good posture and hearing and eyesight, the whole thing. They're perfect health, right? And then he would see members of the same tribe and sometimes members of the same family who had started eating the flours and the refined
oils,
sugar and oils, all that, and they would start to have dental decay and suffer from all kinds of maladies. So he was like, oh my gosh. So Dr. Price wrote a book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration to explain all of this and to show photos and that contrast.
So how does that then...
Hold on 1 second. What year was this done? What year did he do that?
It was in the 30s.
Okay.
He wrote his book, I think, in 1939.
Okay.
And so these 11 principles are actually building on what Dr. Price found because he was limited by time and space. And so I think the foundation has continued to research what are commonalities of people groups all over the world. They added, I think, the ferment piece and a few of these others because it clearly was common ground for people no matter where they lived around the world.
So what in the world happened to America?
Such a good question. I think we started moving to cities. We started moving to cities and choosing convenience over quality. And those were our downfall.
Was it that we didn't know about the quality piece at first?
I think that's right. I think people thought, oh, this food in a can, it's easier and quicker. And take Crisco, for example. They thought, well, this looks like lard, which we used to eat and cook our food in and on the farm, but it's actually a petroleum byproduct. Yeah. So they didn't know the harm it was going to cause. And of course, for the first generation, it wasn't as evident. But this is also what Dr. Price and Dr. Pottinger discovered is that subsequent generations suffer more the consequences of our poor nutrition.
Yes.
So he also noted that people, and I show my own face as an example, but people's faces, their skulls literally are narrower as their parents' diets were compromised. So my face is narrow, my children's faces may be even narrower unless I reverse the trend by eating very nutrient-dense foods when I want to have children, and then their faces may become broader again because the body is adaptable, right?
It is, yeah.
But once we're born, we are missing some strong foundations if we didn't get properly nourished in the womb.
Can it happen that quick?
Well, he suggested that in just a generation, you could turn things around.
Wow.
He even saw one family that had departed from their food ways, returned to them, and there was a difference in the children. So, but now, Justin, I have to say, we're more messed up than we used to be, and we're more fragile. And so what that means is it might take a few generations for that turnaround to occur. So
we got more heart disease. We're more overweight. We've got all kinds of allergies and things like that. Now, and Rebekah and I are subject to it too. Rebekah with Hashimoto's, me with Lyme disease. So then we've changed it completely for our kids, and they live a whole different lifestyle. And do they go by all those tenets? Which one are we missing?
Let me see them.
So if
our kids are doing that, then, and those who are listening, because they're getting awakened to this, what's that going to mean for our kids?
Your kids are recovering, which is wonderful. Your kids are going to be able to gain some of the lost ground. But the challenge is there are new threats that you all didn't face when you were little that your kids are facing. And here I want to address the environment. So Dr. Price noted this briefly in his book, but he didn't know where we were going to go. He said, I noticed that the indigenous people don't wear clothes unless they're going to town. Like he literally noted this. What difference does that make? Well, in other words, their bodies were exposed to a lot of nourishing sunlight. And think about our children's lives. They are now working virtually on screens. They're now inside 3/4 of the time, where our ancestors and their children were outside 3/4 of the time.
Yeah.
And not only are our children inside blocked from the sun, but they're in front of blue light and they're getting non-native electromagnetic frequencies that are interfering with their cellular and hormonal function. So the challenge is you can get the diet straight, and this is why I like to go by Holistic Hilda. It's because there are a lot of other things that we should be looking at to improve everybody's health overall.
Yeah, so those 11 tenets are all diet.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so given that aspect with the wideness of the jaw and the foundation there, is it going to be our kids that are going to be better off as they grow up, or is it their kids?
Whose kids?
Ours.
My grandkids.
Oh, your kids. Well, both, obviously.
Yeah.
Both are going to be better off. But it is important, and it's not part of the wise traditions diet or nutritional plan, but we touch on 5G on the podcast, the Wise Traditions podcast. We touch on the power of sunlight for your mitochondria, cold therapy. We've discussed all the things and spiritual and mindset components as well, because these are all a factor. And the truth is, if you are loving your kids, and I've witnessed this, so I know you are, that is a component that's kind of not easily measured, but is going to give them a really nice base for their life and for their children's children.
You said we love our kids, and we are. What does love look like from a parent to a child?
Well, what I've noticed is you're creating a safe environment. You let them know that they're needed, so they have responsibilities and obligations to fulfill, and they're doing it. You don't tease them or make fun of them. You're supportive. I mean, it's so many things. I mean, I don't think I've heard you say I love you to your kids, but I've seen the way you love them, the way you hold them, the way they come to you. That interaction is priceless and so good for their health.
Yeah.
How about just being with them?
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, like you're talking about like sunlight on our kids. Like frequently our kids will run around without their shirts on. They're in their bathing suits all summer long, like not that I can't keep clothes on them, but they just are all the time. They'll like just get in their bathing suit in the morning for the day. Like when it's hot outside, they run around barefoot all the time.
For those that don't know, it has an earthing, grounding element to
yeah,
it.
Absolutely.
And then,
I mean,
they're exercising all the day.
Josiah will be like, I'm going to see how many days I can go in a row without putting shoes on. That's like, and then he gets so upset when I'm like, okay, we have to go to the chiropractor. He's like, but I have to wear shoes. Yeah. I just started. I'm only 4 days in. I was going to go like 2 weeks.
I see what you're saying about blending. It can't just be health anymore. So we have the health aspect. If nourishing traditions is our foundation, what are the other elements? On your site, you also talked about having hacks, health hacks. You listed some. What off the top of your head, after interviewing so many people, are some of the most impactful hacks?
I would say cold therapy is one that surprised me, I have to say.
Tell everybody what that means.
It means taking advantage of your environment. It means getting outside more and not being afraid to shiver. I have a friend who says that 10 minutes of shivering is worth an hour of working out. And I agree with that because it depletes glycogen in your muscles. So actually I am more defined because I've let myself shiver than, with less working out. I don't want to say I'm more defined than when I would work out. I still do work out some, but it's amazing what it does for the body. It kind of wakes up ancient regulatory temperature controls and pathways in the body that we don't use because inside we're always comfortable. If you think about it, 70 degrees in the summer, 70 in the winter. We're trying to keep things the same when our bodies were designed to regulate the temperature and that is a good function for optimal health. So
how often do you get cold?
Cold therapy is new for you, right?
Fairly new.
Yeah, because I feel like within the last couple of years you started doing it. I remember when you sat in that cold water with that gentleman. I don't know who that was, but you got in a cold plunge. Yeah. So how long have you been doing that? It's just been a couple of years.
Okay. But I just got my cold plunge tub so I can do it more frequently. Your question is valid, Justin. I would just do it normally with the seasons. In other words, as it cools off, instead of tossing a jacket on, I'll stay with either no jacket or just a light one. Like I resist bundling myself up. And you don't have to spend more than 15 minutes at a time out there really getting really cold.
So you actually got a tub. So you'll do this in the summer too?
Oh, yeah. Because as you know,
how many days a week?
Well, I just got my tub, so I got to figure this out. But I would say I think I'm going to shoot for at least 3 because I also don't want to overdo it. But I know it lowers inflammation. It helps you be present in the now, which is actually another hack I can talk about in a moment. But it improves cognitive function. It kind of wakes up your body. It's exhilarating. And I've had the privilege of going to Wisconsin and Minnesota and jumping in ice holes with Thaddeus Owen, the Primal Hacker. I think you were talking about him. But I've also been able to run into the cold ocean. I'm telling you guys, I used to go to the beach and not get in the water because it was too cold. And now I'm like, I just need to embrace it with a positive mindset and be like, oh my gosh, this is so much fun, like kids do. Yeah. And then it's fun on all the levels.
Now what happened? We were supposed to be doing this intuitive eating. I'm all about it. So I get in the ice bath 55 for 5 minutes. Yeah. Almost every day. But we listen to our body in response to these food, but we throw out the body's signals when we jump in a tub of ice. We really do. The last thing you want to do is sit there for 5 minutes. So how do we know when to push ourselves in a wrong direction and it be good?
Right. Well, there's something called hormetic stress, right? Which is just the right amount of stress that challenges your body, but it doesn't hurt you. So that's what we're going for. And in those moments, Justin, when we get in that ice water, that our brain is telling us, stop, and we're saying, no, we're doing this.
Screaming.
It's screaming. That's right. What we're doing is we're learning to be comfortable with discomfort. And when we're comfortable, being uncomfortable, it is such a valuable tool for the rest of your life. So that means if I'm in a scary situation, I can tell my body, using my brain and my spirit, you're going to be okay because I've already tested it in those cold waters. So you're really priming yourself for other situations. I find it amazing. And we do the same thing when we fast. We're telling our stomach, it's okay, you can growl for a little bit. It's okay, you're hungry. I acknowledge that. You're cold. I acknowledge that. But you're not letting your body rule the day. So we're listening, but we're also staying in charge, if you will.
Yeah. So is there a place for eating at McDonald's? Because, oh my gosh, this is comfortable. Oh, uncomfortable. Oh my gosh, this is a little bit of toxic. Maybe my body should fight that. Is there a place for a cheat?
I think there's a place for a cheat, but McDonald's is not that place.
What's your cheat?
Like, maybe consuming more a sugary snack, but homemade. I mean, it's still sugar. Like homemade marshmallows, it's still sugar. Okay. It's still, or for you, Mr. Rhodes, kale. You could eat a kale salad. He doesn't eat kale.
Who would want to cheat and have kale? Not a cheat. It's a peanut butter chocolate bar.
Okay, well, eat you some peanut butter and chocolate.
What if you didn't even think of it as cheating?
Yeah.
What if you thought of it as like, I'm going to enjoy every morsel of food that goes in my mouth. That's how I see it. I don't think I'm cheating if I eat a cookie or eat something that's not organic. I just think, well, I wanted to eat it and I did, but I'm also judicious. I'm not going to have that every day. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. I mean, things just eating something that's like, so it's so funny because when I get around my girlfriends, I'll be like, we cheated. And they're like, they roll their eyes. They're like, you cheated with some corn, because we don't normally eat like grains or whatever. And they're just like, that's not even a cheat.
So back to the let's go back to the shivering. You want to turn that down so it doesn't beep? The shivering. Okay, so we went tubing once. I shivered. I ended up with walking pneumonia. So how do you know where that line is? If somebody's listening to this, they're going to go jump in for all we know, they could get in a bucket of ice for 5 minutes at 55 degrees and get sick.
I'm so glad you said that, because really what you need to do is build up your cold callus. So you're not going to just go from 0 to 60 right away. You could hurt yourself, and I don't want that to happen to anybody. So you can start simply, like I said, with shiver walks is what I call it. A walk where you're just outside for 15 minutes with one less layer. The next thing you might try is a face plunge. Have you guys done that before?
No.
We just went straight in.
Oh my gosh, you did. You just went 100%.
All or nothing.
What we did is we just got in.
Okay.
We just got in and then got out. So we submerged our bodies for.
What are you talking about?
When we started doing the cold plunge. Yeah. Like we just went in and got out. Like that's how we started.
Well, we didn't know. It's probably better.
And then we realized that you have to do it for 3 minutes. So then we kind of built up to that.
Well, when you jump in, it's like you're getting electrified by an electric fence. It's like you wrapped an electric fence around your body.
Well,
I'm just being real. It's not comfortable.
It's not comfortable. What I learned from my friend Thaddeus Owen and others is some Wim Hof breathing techniques. Have you heard of the Iceman? Yeah. Okay. So these breathing techniques help you gain control and stay in for maybe longer than you might have at first. But it should be, I would recommend, if you're going to go for a plunge, Don't do it Justin and Rebekah's way. Please don't do it their way. No, I'm just kidding. What you need to do is see if you can find a friend or some training ground. I have a friend, Bob Soulier, who's going to do a retreat in the Outer Banks in February. It's like go with someone who can teach you the ropes, and then again you can decide what's going to work for you. But I think building up gradually is better than all or nothing, because you could hurt yourself.
Well, I mean, we just like got in and out, and then we built our tolerance up to 5 minutes.
But you didn't have any guidance. You were just kind of going on your own.
Yeah, it was.
She's saying don't do that.
Yeah, no.
Don't do that.
Well,
no,
I didn't start doing it until Justin had read me some of Wim Hof, and then I was like, okay, I need to do this. So then we like looked into it further. Like,
okay, so when you jump in, it doesn't feel good at first, but how does it feel eventually?
When you get out, it feels wonderful.
Yeah, it does.
You're energetic.
Well, and
it's like a run. You never want to go on a run, but when the run's over, you're so happy you did it.
Well, and you just feel like I just did that. Like, I feel so strong. Like, what can't I not accomplish? Yeah.
Yes, I feel the same way. Like, in the winter, people look at me because I wear little shorts and a tank top, and I'm out there and it's snowing, and they think I'm crazy. But after I do my shiver walk, I feel like I can do anything. And so it's the same with plunges. I was out in Wisconsin doing these plunges, and this, like, 80-some-year-old woman did it too, and she was just jubilant. It was like that movie Cocoon or Benjamin Button. Like she reversed her aging just by doing something that stimulated her body so much. It was really beautiful to behold. And by the way, the cold does lengthen your telomeres as well, so you will live longer.
Oh.
What's telomeres? What'd you just say?
Telomeres?
What'd you just say?
I said telomeres.
What is that?
I don't know exactly. But it's the thing. You know? It's like this. It's this shape. I can picture it. It's like an infinity shape. Right. And when they get longer, you live longer. And you just want more of those. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So I love shivering. I also love the sun. One of my hacks is, I already mentioned that it's beneficial, but the early morning sunlight is really, really good for setting your circadian rhythm, for helping you sleep more profoundly at night, for boosting your metabolism. I know people who have lost weight just by getting the early morning sun. Like, it's amazing.
How long in the morning?
Again, just like 15 minutes. What I do is I try to get out within 30 to 45 minutes of sunrise. That's what Jack Cruz and Thaddeus Owen recommend. Okay. And so you're out there. It's great if you can make, some kind of eye contact or see the general direction from which the sun rises. I know that's tricky in the mountains.
Yeah, it is tricky.
But if you just get out there, it's like you're letting your whole body know what time of day it is. It just really syncs you up with nature. Now, I get sleepy earlier. Of course you do when you get up so early, but it's like I'm more in sync with nature and with my own body's rhythms. And it's so good for hormonal function. And then the melatonin, that is the hormone that oversees, your sleep, it gets released at just the right time and produced in just the right quantity when you're aligned with the sunshine. So the problem with the blue light, especially if you get that at night from your screens, is that it interferes with your melatonin production and release. And so it confuses your body about what time of day it is. I'll tell you a quick story. I used to get on my laptop and I'd be working, it'd be midnight, 1, 2 in the morning. I'm like, I'm Superwoman. Everyone else is sleeping and I don't need sleep. I didn't know that the light was affecting my pineal gland and changing my idea of what time of day it was. And my sleep, when I did get there, wasn't as profound because it wasn't as restorative because I had interfered with all of those hormonal functions. So the idea is get the early morning sunlight if you can, and then the rest of your day and your sleep will benefit.
What about laying in the sun?
It's amazing. Because, did I mention the mitochondria yet?
No.
That's another big word, and I do know what this is. The mitochondria are like these little battery packs in your cells. And you don't just have one per cell, you have thousands. And what they do is they get energy from food, but also the sun. And some say the sun nourishes the mitochondria even better than food. So our skin is like solar panels that should be exposed to the sun as much as possible, like the indigenous people had. So laying out as much as you can is great. And even in the middle of the day when there's a lot of UVA and UVB, that's like the powerful rays that are actually really, really good. But everyone worries, oh, is it going to give me wrinkles or sun damage? But I'm telling you, I would rather have my body working efficiently on the inside than look perfect on the outside. And so I just take it all in any time of day, give it to me. And that's what I recommend.
Did the indigenous people get sunburnt?
Oh, no, they didn't. They were also smart. And so if you notice yourself getting red because you're fairer skinned, you may need to cover up or go inside for a bit. And again, like I said, building your cold callus, you can build your sun callus and take your time with this. Also, if you do get burned, did you know that if you get the sunlight light, it helps it helps heal that burn.
Really?
Yes, it does. So when you get burned during the day, get that sunset light. And Jack Kruse and my friend R.D. Code, who wrote the Mitochondriac Manifesto, they explain this in more detail. But it's actually so funny, you guys. It's very much like the food pyramid. Like we were told these foods are good, and it's actually not necessarily true. We've been told all our lives, slather yourself with sunscreen, put on sunglasses, stay out of the sun, when the opposite is what our bodies really need. And how can we discern what's true or not? N equals 1, like observe with yourself what happens if you do more of what I'm saying, but also look at what has stood the test of time. And that might provide some answers as well.
What's an example of food they said was good? That's not.
Oh, well, it really has to do more, not so much with the food as the way it's prepared, like grains. You know, the bottom of the food pyramid, and I know they've changed to my plate, but they're still saying like all these grains and all these legumes and, you know, avoid meat. Well, meat is what most people in the world can subsist on because not all ground is arable. You can't always have gardens with things growing. So meat is what we most need. If you could eat only one food for the rest of your life, I would recommend meat, actually. I do lean carnivore because I think it's just full of all the vitamins and minerals and iron and all the things that you need. Plants are great. I like them enough, but they're like acquaintances, and I'm married to meat.
Oh, when'd you marry meat?
She would marry meat.
When did I marry
you
meat?
said you would marry meat.
Oh, yeah, I'm married. I'm married.
So she married me. When did you marry meat?
When?
That's a good question. I think more recently I have. So in the past few years, I forget the date. But
Boy.
I just realized I don't like vegetables. So why am I even trying to pretend I do? You know, people think you're supposed to eat your fruit and vegetables.
That's because you're supposed to eat your vegetables.
Well, that's what they
Spinach,
say.
Popeye.
It has a lot of oxalates, don't you know?
Oh, I know.
Listen,
I know.
animals try to kill you before you kill them, you know, bear in the wild and whatnot.
Yeah.
But plants try to kill you after you harvested them because they have anti-nutrients. So when I was saying what have they said that's bad for you that might or is good for you that might be bad, grains are okay, but they need to be prepared properly. They need to be soaked or sprouted or fermented, as we said earlier.
Yeah.
So again, I don't like to label foods good or bad, but I have my favorites. So
well, I mean, what do you think about intuitive eating? You know, is that just the whole like listen to your body, see how it reacts? Because I'm always confused by this. Like somebody that I follow on a blog, like they get a food sensitivity test and they are sensitive to zucchini and they've been eating zucchini, but they've been avoiding eggs and they're not sensitive to eggs. So but like they have no indication that the zucchini is bothering them. Does that make sense?
So how do they know the labs came back right?
I know. See, that's what I want to know. I'm so confused by a lot of that because I'm like for instance, I mean, Justin, like he has a beastly gut. I mean, like the man, like nothing, like people will say like, oh, if you go off of the diet that he's, you know, I mean, talk about a million diets. He's been on 1.5 million of them. They're crazy. It's very intense. And so then someone will be like, because, you know, it's birthday season in our house and the kids want us to eat a piece of cake with them. And so the person will say, oh, well, he'll just feel bad the next day. But he eats the cake and he doesn't feel bad the next day. It doesn't even bother him. So we're like, what's the deal?
Yeah, that's why that's when it's hard to listen to your body.
Yeah.
When your body doesn't speak to you right away.
Or if your body's broken.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying you can't pursue labs and get things checked out. That may help people who are like, I've just been barking up every tree and I can't find any answers. Well, for goodness sakes, then definitely see who you can see. Maybe try to go into a naturopath or a functional medicine practitioner who might have more interest in pursuing things that are more natural and less of the conventional stuff. But it's hard to know. But if your body isn't broken, I think you'll hear its messages more clearly. Maybe that's the way to look at it. Personally, I haven't done a lot of lab work. When it did, it said everything was fine. But I know there are people who are struggling a lot. And so I understand why they might need to kind of outsource some of that. But I wouldn't outsource it forever. I love what Dr. Tommy John says, which is look for a doctor who'll say, sign up for your last visit. Meaning, I'm not going to try to keep you seeing me in perpetuity. We're going to try to make this so you're helped and then you're equipped and empowered to move on.
Yeah. We've got cold, we've got sunlight, we've got good food. What else?
Well, we talked about sleep a little bit, didn't we?
Yep. Which
Okay.
the sunlight
That's-
set you in. Do you got
Yeah,
any
yeah.
other tricks
Well-
for sleeping good?
Well, absolutely. So again, I was talking about the blue light. So keep your devices out of your bedroom.
Mhm.
We're not going to talk about intimacy here or anything, but anyway, sorry, little inside joke for adults. But don't have your TV or your computer or your phone in your room because that light interferes with your sleep. But also the pinging some of these devices do. You know, they're looking for the towers and they're trying to figure out where they're at, and there's just a lot of radiation stuff. Turn off your Wi-Fi at night. We have ours on a timer. That really helps too, because otherwise it's like you're charging yourself up. And just think, if you were in a massage chair, one of those ones you put in $1 in the malls like they used to do, and you'd be moving like this, you know, you don't want that going all night long from something you can't even see, you know. And as a matter of fact, I turn off the whole circuit to my bedroom. It's off all the time. So there's no light in there, which causes my husband to stumble over things now and then. But generally speaking, it's nice because then even the electricity on the wall isn't interfering with our sleep. But if you don't want to go that far, get blackout curtains. Do what you can to make the room as dark and as cool as possible. And that really helps set you up for success. Not to mention, last but not least, if you spend 8 hours in bed, it doesn't mean you necessarily slept 8 hours, because we're wakeful. We toss and turn a little bit, hear a noise, the baby crying. You know how that goes. So I recommend I try to get 9, well, I don't want to say 10 because that's a lot and that would be a stretch even for me, but I try to get at least 9 hours in bed, which gives me 8 hours of sleep. It's really, really interesting.
Do some people need 10?
Yeah, if their bodies are telling them, yes. And there are times.
How do you go ahead?
Well, you could tell if you're tired. Like I wake up without an alarm and I'm ready to go. I'm not like sluggish or, you know, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's another day. Granted, my children are not your children's age. Then you might just be facing that anyway. But I think you can tell by your energy level. Do you get drowsy during the day? I think if people get more real light and less artificial light, that would be a good help for their sleep.
What do you tell somebody that, well, I'm irritable Justin the first half hour of the day. So how do you tell somebody to know the difference between just feeling a little groggy? Sometimes you have to push through that. How do you know when to push through that discomfort of waking up? Like, it's not fun to wake up. Or are you having fun wake up?
Well, it could be also
Maybe that's just me.
It's just
It is
irritable
uncomfortable waking up.
Really?
Getting out of the bed.
He's never ever.
I mean, the
before
warm
we had
covers,
kids,
the house
before
is
we
a
had
little chilly.
kids, he didn't like waking up.
Okay, I have a tip for you. And this goes to spirit. This is another one of my hacks. So your mindset makes a difference. If you're just like thinking, oh my gosh, Rebekah's going to ask me, no, I'm just kidding, to do this or that, or, oh, I got to go with the chores. I wouldn't want to wake up for that either. But
No.
I literally, okay, it might not be that, but just bear with me for a second. The first thing to do really when your eyes open is think thoughts of gratitude and put a smile on your face. Even an artificial smile makes your body think, oh, something good's going to happen. So I literally put a smile on my face, and that like sends a signal to my whole body and probably gets Is it endorphin?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. The endorphins flowing, or the oxytocin, which I always confuse with Oxycontin, which isn't good to confuse. But anyway, the idea is get yourself feeling happy and thankful, and that might make it easier. Now, I hear that Ben Greenfield springs out of bed. I don't spring out of bed, but I'm happy when I get out because I'm ready. I'm happy, and I'm grateful.
Why does he spring out of bed?
I don't know. That's Ben Greenfield. I think he springs out of bed with like energy and enthusiasm, maybe to get his body.
Well, it must be fun to be married to him.
His kids are older.
Okay, so I'm not going to be the only one on this hook. Do y'all honestly, wake up just a bundle of joy, just ready
Smile
to...
on your face?
No, Ben's admitting it. No, it takes a minute, right? Right,
It's
Jason?
rough.
But what time?
Was it rough before
You don't like
kids,
it,
or
no?
is it rough after kids?
What
It's
time
the
do you go
worst.
to bed?
All right. He's got it.
What time do you go to bed?
9 o'clock.
Okay, Ben goes to bed at 9. Yeah,
Then I wake up at
that's good.
6:30, and my son's awake, and I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
I think Ben needs to eat more meat.
So Ben goes to sleep at 9, gets up at
Good.
6:30
Okay,
with
he's
his son.
sleeping the right
It's
amount.
hard when something wakes you up, right? Like, because your son.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It's on his terms.
Right. If I
That's-
have an hour, no problem.
If Ben's got an hour, it's not a problem. Because, yeah, that is different. Henry's getting up at 5:30, and I've been wanting to get up at 5:30, but when he wakes me up at 5:30, instead of my mind just waking me up at 5:30, I'm PO'd.
See, I like to lay in bed. So, like, I like to wake up and then just lay there for a little bit to kind of like I couldn't spring out of bed. He springs out of bed. I shouldn't say spring. He's no Ben Greenfield, but he does get out of bed like a lot quicker than me. I like to just lay there and like think about things and think about the day and like get moving, and then I can get out of bed.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe, I don't know if you guys drink coffee, but I think
No.
sometimes people start to depend on that to energize. Some people do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what if we, flip the script and chose something else instead, like sunshine and shivering and
Yeah.
movement? Another thing I do is actually Ben taught me this, just almost like a little lymphatic system jiggling in the morning when you're outside, kind of like a heel pop like the Kenyans do. And it kind of gets everything flowing, and that boosts your mood too. So I would just look for something, if you're feeling groggy and tired, that would kind of boost you up so that you feel ready to meet the day. And maybe it's okay if you're groggy for a little while, but all I know is it's nice to wake up and not have to wake up to an alarm and not feel like I wish I had a little more time in bed.
George Mueller used to say, because he used to get up early and pray and stuff, and he would say, you'll feel groggy at first, but it soon wears off. And so sometimes I just have to tell myself that. When I was
But I wonder if you would get up and get outside right away, if that would help you.
No, I just feel like dying. I'm going to help Ben a little bit and myself. I'm going to say something that has helped me over the years. Going to bed at the exact same time every day, and have done that now for about 2 or 3 years, it's starting to get easy. Like 5:30, 6:30 is not nearly a big deal anymore like it was. But every day, I'm talking about Friday night, Saturday night too.
Yeah.
9 o'clock.
No matter what. We
And
always
Amish
go to
hour
bed
from
early.
8 to 9.
Yeah.
So no screens. So it does get a little bit better.
I'm just tired because I have an 8-month-old.
Of course.
Before, I guess that's why we have an 8-month-old, is because I forgot all about the sleep deprivation.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Because I was sleeping great
you
before.
get your last kid going to sleep. So your kid isn't going to sleep yet real good at night, right? Still getting up early. Once that kid gets better, this may be the way God arranged it, is that
Then you'll have a second,
forget.
you'll have another child.
You forget, and you start fooling around, and you have another child.
I understand. I had 4.
Yeah.
I still have 4. But one last hack I'll mention is related to what we're discussing about mindset and remembering these little things that help you out. Like I really think it's important to, as best you can, I know you've got little ones and you got chores and stuff to do, but maybe even incorporating in those things little mantras or prayers or phrases that you say, affirmations kind of, even with the kids, that will help them feel secure and safe, but also give them something to hold on to when times get rough. So I was at a friend's house recently, and on her wall they had like 4 or 5, almost like a family manifesto, 4 or 5 guidelines, like we are resilient, we laugh at ourselves easily or whatever. It was like 4 or 5 things. And I really liked that. And I remember when our kids were little, we had like a little Gore Power cheer before they went to school. And we would say little verses and little prayers and things that they could hold on to when times got rocky, when they weren't near us. Now, are you guys homeschooling?
Yeah.
Yeah. So your kids have that nice safety net too. But things are going to get, challenging out there. That's what helps us all grow, right? So I begin my day with gratitude. I have a little journal where I write down a few things I'm thankful for every day. And that is not to be kind of just dismissed like, oh, no big deal. It really helps me stay in that thankful mindset. So it helps me receive the day thankfully to God. And then at the end of the day too, when I lay my head on the pillow, I think of what I'm thankful for. And that helps me drift off to sleep in a positive mindset.
Did it help your kids? They're now grown. Did they implement that in their own lives now?
Yeah, they're beautiful people. Your children go from being the kids that you train into becoming your friends. I can literally tell you that every single one of my kids is positive. They love God. They're fulfilled. They're wise. It doesn't mean they're perfect, but there's something about them that's really strong. And this wasn't easy because I raised them in the city,
Yeah.
And so they were kind of the outcasts in terms of like, we didn't really watch TV. They didn't know what their friends were talking about half the time. We didn't listen to the same radio stations, all the things. And yet they turned out with this really strong sense, I think, of self and their purpose in the world. It's beautiful to see.
Cool. Let's talk about mindset for a second. So, I'm wondering before we talk, let's go down the road of mindset. So we were out doing chores with you, And we were out in the wood, the coldest part of our farm. And Lily said, "Oh, I'm having a bad day." She was kind of being grumpy. And you said, "There are no bad days." Please tell me more about this.
Well, it reminds me of, we used to label some bacteria as good bacteria in the gut and some as bad. But what if the bad actually helps the good somehow? There's supposed to be a balance. It's not supposed to be all one kind. So I bring this up because we have challenges, no doubt. I've had challenging days. I've had sad days and difficult days, but they've been to my benefit. They've been for my growth. And I wouldn't be the person I am today if it weren't for those very hard, very difficult, and yet not bad days.
Yeah. You've even lost a parent.
Yes.
Is it your dad?
No, my mom. May she rest in peace. And it was during the time of COVID too.
How do you turn that? That had to be an awful day. I mean, but how do you turn that? How do you turn that bad day into what you're speaking of now?
Well, I could see the beauty even in the difficulty, in that the way my children literally enveloped me during that time of mourning on that particular day. My kids are young adults. They cooked for us, for me and my husband. They were just there, and I think if you don't have your family close by, I think what can help you through the bad times is community. And I noticed this too in Kenya, that they're very unified people groups over there, and it's something we don't have here. In the Jewish community, when someone passes, the surrounding people will come and sit Shiva with those who are mourning for a period of like at least 10 days, I believe. And they just come and they're with you. They bring food, they cover the mirrors in the house, and they sit with you. And that's not something that happened to me, especially during the time of COVID. So my children, in essence, did that for me. And I was sad, but I'm also kind of glad for my mom that she left quickly so she didn't have to see all the craziness of this world right now. And she used to say to me, "Ay, Hilda, si me da un patatus," if I ever just like kick the bucket, and she would say like, "Do this or that." I was like, "Mom, that's not going to happen to you." And then like 2 weeks later, she did. She had a stroke. But not to get bitter about this, but they wrote COVID on the death certificate. And the doctor even told me, he's like, "I think all she's going through has to do with her. She had a hernia. She had high blood pressure. She had all these things going on." She didn't eat the wise traditions way, by the way. But she was a little spitfire. She was awesome. But so she had a lot of stuff going on, and she passed, and they wrote COVID. And I was too sorrowful to fight them on it.
Yeah.
But again, I see the blessing amidst it, that she just went quickly, and that my family sat with me through the grief and the sorrow.
Well, sometimes that it's hard because that kind of stuff that you speak of is real. Somebody dies and that's sad enough, but there are sometimes things around it that are hard to deal and cope with. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm quick, I have to admit, to dismiss hard things, which is probably why I told your daughter there are no bad days. There are challenging days, but I do think ultimately, even what we're going through right now, you guys, is somehow for our good.
Yeah.
It's like childbirth. Man, that's hard. Talk about hard. That stuff is hard. And what did my husband do? He massaged my back a little bit, but he quoted verses to me to help my body to relax. Like, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not anxiously look about you, for I am your God. I will help you. I will uphold you. I will strengthen you with my righteous right hand." And as he was quoting this to me, one of the nurses is like, "It's like you're getting drugs," because she saw my whole body relax, knowing this is in someone else's hands and I can trust. And the babies came out naturally. I mean, it was a beautiful, beautiful thing, but it was hard. But that spiritual piece is not to be overlooked. And it's more than mindset. I do believe that Indigenous people groups all over the world know how to connect to each other and to someone that's in charge of it all. And it gives them a greater sense of security and peace.
Can we add to your own tenets, community?
Yes.
You said
absolutely.
Cold, sunlight, food, sleep, mindset. Let's add community.
Oh my gosh. I feel so strongly about this, and community in person. Really, the past few days that we've had together, it's not like we've been like playing tiddlywinks or, card games that much or anything.
Yeah,
no, not
came
Kumbaya.
pretty close right before this show. You did break out the guitar.
Their children were so bored when I pulled out my guitar. I was
No,
shocked.
That's
they
not
were.
musical.
They're
It's awkward
like
for them.
they don't know what to do with this.
I know. It was funny.
I was like, come on, guys, this is not bad. Like,
was
she's
like
entertaining us.
dancing around the table playing my guitar.
And my kids are like,
But we still, I mean,
This is the crazy lady that told us there's no bad days.
I'm like dancing around. She'll be coming around the mountain when she comes. But in the end, they did get into it
they
a little bit.
did.
But the community that you all have fostered here, and I've met some of your friends. I know we're going to meet more this weekend. Like, it is a beautiful thing. And I know a lot of people say nowadays, like, oh, you need to have like-minded community. But I don't want everybody around me thinking the same way. Just like I want a diverse microbiome, I like having different people around me because it challenges me.
Come here, baby. Come here, baby. Check time and stuff. Okay.
Aww. So you all have built this beautiful community, and maybe built is too strong of a word, but you've found people who help you grow, and you help them grow, and you support each other, and it's a beautiful thing. So when I was in Kenya in this Maasai community, they asked someone from the foundation to come over. This Maasai warrior literally contacted the foundation, and he said, please send someone over. We're all getting sick. He goes, I have diabetes. My wife has asthma. He had gotten a hold of some of the Weston A. Price Foundation brochures, and he's like, oh my gosh, we're seeing the physical degeneration of our own people because we've departed from our traditional food ways. They had suddenly a little shop where they were getting sodas and drinking chai tea and having white bread jam sandwiches. And so it was like crazy. So I mean, he could have told his community this is what we should do, but he thought they'd be more persuaded if someone came from afar. So sure enough, there I go. And there are all these people in Maasai dress around me. And I talked to the women, I talked to the men, I talked to the community. So the Sunday I left, they actually had a church. And the pastor got up in front of the whole congregation. He said, starting tomorrow, no, I think he said today actually, starting today, our women will cook our traditional foods. And I was like, whoa, like he just threw that down there. And I don't know how the women felt about that, right? I was like, oh my gosh. But then I found out, I was like, this
They're
is
kind of liking the jam and
heavy
toast
dictum,
break.
exactly. But
Convenience foods.
I found out, I know, but I found out later that they decide things by consensus. You know, the leadership, there is a community feel there. And so together they had decided this is what we want to do to restore our community's health. And then a year later, I went back and they had done a U-turn. They had started to abandon their things. Like Dixon, the Maasai warrior who contacted us, his wife, Jocelyn, had stopped working. She had a little part-time job teaching at a school or something. And she started building their garden. And so she started to cultivate many more plants and vegetables that she would sell at market or feed her family. It was so beautiful to see. So I got the sense that they're more cohesive. And one reason we feel so lonely in our society is because we're all just doing our own thing. And I don't think we're supposed to meant to be so far apart all the time, physically and on other levels too.
Mm-hmm.
What year was that?
That was 2015 when I first went over there. Then I returned in 2016. Yeah.
So what's the answer for cultivating community in 2021?
That's one of those hard-hitting questions I was telling you about. Let's see. It's not easy, but I don't think it's something that can be done virtually. So I don't care how much they say, you know, keep a distance from people and don't do these gatherings. I think we need each other desperately, and we need to see each other in person. Bruce Lipton said, there's an energy exchange that happens when we're together that doesn't happen at other times. So we're like, just as I described earlier, that we have these little battery packs in us, it's like our battery packs are exchanging energy. And that's why after I hang with people like you, I'm like ready to take on the world. But if I'm alone, well, I still can take on the world after a cold plunge, but I like to get energy from other people too. And hopefully I'm giving it as well so that we're all bolstered up to do what we were meant to do. I encourage you in your, YouTube channel and your podcasting and your book and in your homesteading and the way you're raising your family. Like, I think it's so beautiful. And you encourage me by saying, Hilda, you're on the right track, and come do some more chores. You'll get stronger, whatever it is, it's just something that I think we have to do in person. And it is challenging, but if we're not finding it in our immediate community, we might have to move. I mean, we might have to do what it takes to find it so that we can be strong in body and spirit. to find it and to cultivate it. You know, Dr. Jack Kruse says we can't heal in the same place that made us sick. And he's talking a lot of times about the non-native electromagnetic frequencies, but I think this is also true of the people who are surrounding us. If they're naysayers, if they're bringing us down, if every time we see them we're drained or discouraged or we're wanting to fight, that might not be the best place for us.
Okay. I'm going to ask a question. You ask your guests. Out of all this, what's the number one thing folks can do to improve their health? If they could only do one of these things, they're intimidated by all this and they can only do one. What's the most powerful?
It has to be cultivating a spiritual practice because these bodies only last so long. Even though I think Dave Asprey is shooting for 160 and I'm shooting for 120, they only last so long. And there's more to us than meets the eye. So do what you can to cultivate that spiritual part of you, whether it's, you know, in a Bible study or prayer or meditation, something that helps you remember that there's something greater that will help you grow to become more of the person you're supposed to be. I want to be the most holistic Hilda-ish I can be. I want you to be the most Justin-ish you can be and Rebekah-ish you can be. I mean, like your essence, like that gets worn away if you don't do something to be still, be a human being and not just a human doing. So find a way to be still and cultivate a spiritual practice that nourishes you from the inside out.
Yeah, that's good. What kind of questions do we have, Jason? So let me ask you that again. I'll ask so to get in the mic. We have some questions from the members. I'll also say they're asking, what questions do you ask when finding a functional medicine doctor? Let's also add, you're interviewing all these experts on health, very smart people, probably with different opinions. How do you know which one's right for you? So that plus, how do you pick a doctor?
Well, a very practical answer to that question is look for your local Weston A. Price Foundation chapter leader. They are volunteers whose main objective is to help people find real food, sources of real good natural food in their area, pastured meats and so on. But they often also have lists of naturopaths and functional medicine practitioners, and that might be a good starting place. So you're like, where do I begin? I also know that Robin Shirley of Take Back Your Health is forming a directory for the Charlottesville, Virginia area, but she's trying to make it nationwide and eventually international so that you could just find some recommended doctors that'll really be of help to you. But I think secondly, I would look for someone that's willing to take some time with you that isn't just going to take your labs or, take your blood work and then be like, okay, here you go. Let me know if you have any questions, but someone much like the doctor I interviewed over here at Taylor Ranch, actually, Dr. Gus Vickery, who said he will spend 2 hours with each patient going over their lab work and helping them figure out what they need. Because again, since there's more to us than meets the eye, I don't think the labs are going to tell the whole story. Like you told me some story recently, Rebekah, of the stress your husband was under that may have led to a flare-up of Lyme's and stuff. So that's not something a doctor who takes 15 minutes with you is going to be able to answer.
Right.
So you need to have someone who's going to take the time, who comes to you recommended, and who maybe has a more holistic approach. Does that help?
Yeah. How'd you find our functional medicine doctor?
I found her actually through an internet search.
Did she have good Google reviews or what? How'd you know she was any good?
Well, I knew, so she was I had looked at this one practice and I was wanting a woman specifically. And so I had looked at this one practice and I guess I overlooked that they actually had a woman on staff. The man, he's the one who started the practice. But he also wanted to have a woman on practicing in the practice. So that's why he brought her in. And so then I was just like searching on the internet and she came up and I was like, how did I miss this person? And ended up emailing her and being like, can you help me? And she emailed me back the next day. And that was like a Wednesday. She emailed me back I called her office on Thursday. She emailed me on Friday and said, did the office call you back? They hadn't. she got them to call me back Monday, and I was in to see her Tuesday,
Great.
Yeah.
which was amazing. And
I
I really needed, and she's so good. I would say word of mouth.
Yes.
Like I have recommended her to several people who live in the area. They'll be like, oh, I know, you're seeing a good doctor that you really like.
But a lot
Who
of
is
times
she?
we're crazy. We don't have friends and families that are into this, so
Yeah.
we're alone.
Yeah.
You could travel. I mean, Rebekah and I are willing. If she doesn't work out, that's it too. She don't. We've gotten rid of several doctors and gotten new ones. And
Yeah. That's
we're
how I
willing
found
to travel.
her.
There's a place in Atlanta. There's a place in New York we are eyeing.
There's a place in
And
Seattle.
so if my condition lingers, it might be something we'd be looking into.
And be willing to fire your doctor. That's something else I would say. I'm glad you
Yeah.
said you went through a few, because if they're not serving you or if they're not listening to you, my
Yeah.
mother-in-law is 95 and she recently changed doctors
Good
because
for
she's
her.
like, this practice, I'm like, you've been with them for so long. She's like, I don't care. She goes, they're not listening to me. Their voicemail is full. I'm just like going to somewhere else. I don't even think she said goodbye. I was like, good for you, because she needs to
Yeah.
figure out what works for her,
It's
you know?
like they forget we're the client.
Uh-huh.
We're
Well, and
customers.
how I
We're
found
to serve us.
my current doctor is the former practitioner that I was with. I had written an email and not all my questions even got answered. It was just glossed over, only answered a couple, and I just felt very unheard. And I was like, I need somebody new. This is not, and my gut was right. I did have some liver issues that needed to be dealt with immediately. Liver's important.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. You married meat. Remember?
Yeah.
You married meat. Well, it just made me think, you don't marry your doctor. This isn't a marriage relationship.
That's
He's
right.
not God.
Nope.
He or she is not God.
Mm-hmm.
You know who my doctor is? I mean, I see some.
I
you
mean,
know?
yeah.
But in the end, who's seeing the symptoms the most?
You and then Rebekah.
If not myself,
Yeah,
your best friend.
absolutely.
So don't. Yeah.
I like that. You're not married to your doctor. It's true.
Well, and I'm the one who communicates. Like when they call, they talk to me. They don't talk to him because they know.
So another question from the members: What would you suggest you start your day with? So out of all the people that you've interviewed, there are all these amazing experts, all of these tenets you've just given us, and in your own practice, give us a daily routine from start to end.
To the end of the day?
Yeah.
Oh,
From
that's going
start
to be
to
really
end.
long. There's so many
A
hours.
typical day.
There's so many hours.
Like
By
I
the
said,
second,
literally start with a smile on your face. Then get outside, and I include movement. I walk my dog, but
Hilda. Yeah. Kill two birds with one stone.
yeah, exactly. I stack my hacks.
Yeah.
So I do my shiver walk. I walk my dog. I pray. I do all these things at once when I walk around.
Wow.
And I do have a list of affirmations that I've memorized now that I say every day that help keep me where I want to be in my relationship with God and others. Like one of my lines is, I wish the best for myself and others. And you might think, oh, who cares? Well, what that means is if you have a success, like your upcoming book, I'm not going to be jealous, or maybe a little bit, but I'm not going to be jealous. I'm going to be like, good for him. I wish the best for Justin. You know what I mean? So that's the attitude I want to have. So I stacked my hacks as I walk along. When I come back to the house, I journal. But I don't have like any coffee or tea. I don't drink those warm drinks. But if you want to have something, go for it. I actually fast and I won't eat breakfast till 10, 11, or 12. By that time, it's lunch. But you're also giving your body a break. Intermittent fasting is a great, great tool as well. I'll work some in the morning, but I also might do a sauna or a cold plunge or both now that I have my cold plunge. I'm doing things that are encouraging my spirit and my body first thing, because there is a time when I've got to get on this laptop. I mean, I'm a podcaster, so I'm editing podcasts, I'm reaching out to guests. I have a good chunk of time when I'm working. So what I'll do there too is I'll take a sun break. In the middle of my afternoon, I'll get outside and take a walk through the park with my daughter or a colleague from work. And then I'll get home and I'll have dinner. I try to do one more walk. And I also at night will either wear blue blockers or just make sure there's red light or candles around me to avoid getting that interfering light. And just as you're doing, I yawn and then I go to bed. And it's been a great day. I mean, but I do like to do a lot of my spiritual practices and movement first thing, because if I don't, the day gets away from you and it's hard to bring it back in again. And I know it's hard if you've got little ones. Trust me, I've been there. I would invite them to come outside with you as early as you can and get them in that habit. And have them say little prayers or little fun little family chants or something to get that mindset to be positive so that you're ready to receive the day on your terms and not just letting, you're answering a million emails and you're letting other people pull you around. You've got kind of a plan in mind. And I also have a to-do list and I try to check things off that. So I'm not just responding. I'm being proactive about what I want to get done. And I have goals that I look at every morning as well. So 5-10-year goals. So I know where I'm headed,
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's fun. I'm in a fun stage of life. My kids are older, so I can do a lot. And I'm thankful I have the health and energy to do so and come meet people with you, like you. You guys are amazing.
Thanks. How can folks find out more about you?
Oh, so they can come to my website, holistichilda.com. And I do have a free PDF with some of these things in there, some of my favorite hacks. It's called 3 Ways or Ways to Boost Your Health Anytime. And then I've got Holistic Hilda on Instagram and Telegram. And I've got a YouTube channel where I hope to post a video of my experience here and other fun things coming down the pike.
Yeah, good. So a quick review of these hacks I've wrote down from here. Cold exposure, getting in the sunlight, eating clean, good food, getting lots of sleep, having a positive mindset, being in community, having a spiritual aspect, and fasting.
That sounds great.
We nail them all.
I think so.
If we do that, we're happy, healthy people.
Absolutely. No bad days.
All right. Thanks, Hilda.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.